Welcome to the Perry Health Pulse podcast, a program dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of healthcare, sharing firsthand knowledge from healthcare professionals, and putting you in the driver's seat on your journey to lifelong health and wellness. Listen and learn about how healthcare delivery is changing on our weekly podcast.
September is both National Food Safety Month and National Cholesterol Month, so we're doing an episode today on nutrition. We're joined by Ashley Kannenberg. She's our registered dietitian here at Perry and also the director of dietary. And we're going to be going through a list of kind of a lightning round nutrition myths. Some are true, some are false. Thanks for joining us for that, Ashley.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dane.
All right, so we're just going to make our way down this list of some of the common thoughts or misconceptions about nutrition, starting out with egg yolks are bad for you.
I love that one. The egg yolks are bad for you. I do think it started off as a myth because of the cholesterol aspect of it. So egg yolks are really high in cholesterol. That's where all the fat is. And for a long time, we used to say fat is bad for you. Don't have a lot of fat and cholesterol, that the cholesterol you're eating is raising your blood cholesterol, and that's actually not true. So now we know with some research that just because a food is high in cholesterol does not necessarily mean that it's actually raising your blood cholesterol. So that really dictates, that guideline of changing it a little bit. Can we have more eggs then? Because we now know it's not affecting our cholesterol levels like we once thought. So on average, I usually recommend like 2 to 3 eggs at the max every day. Now, every guideline's a little bit different. And now that we know cholesterol isn't as dictated in our blood cholesterol when we are eating it, they even removed those guidelines from the U.S. dietary guidelines in 2016 when they put them out. So it used to always be a statement on what the upper limit was for intake of cholesterol. It used to be 300 milligrams. You shouldn't have more than that. And now they even remove that from those dietary guidelines because we know a little bit more. So on average, I recommend 2 to 3 because there has been some studies that show that that seems to be safe, that eating 1 to 2 whole eggs per day doesn't seem to change cholesterol levels or heart disease risk factors. And I even say up to 3 because even though LDL cholesterol it will stay the same, and LDL is like your lousy cholesterol, your bad cholesterol. That's how I think of LDL as lousy. Even though that might stay the same, it might just slightly increase. Your HDL, or your happy cholesterol, actually goes up too. And we like to see a high happy cholesterol. So up to 3 eggs a day at the max. I know when I was going to school to be a dietitian, it used to be only 4 egg yolks a week. So now that it's kind of changed a little bit, if you want to go through the studies, 1 to 2 is definitely safe, up to 3 for some. I like eggs because they're nutrient dense, the whole egg, so not just the egg yolk. The egg white itself is high in protein. They can keep you full, help, with promoting weight loss, as well as protecting your brain health and reducing eye disease risk. And then there's some information showing that it might even help with decreasing inflammation in your body. So a lot of good stuff. I think it's really exciting to be able to not fear it as much as it once was feared.
Well, I've heard people say, you're not allowed to have more than 2 eggs. That's the maximum.
Yeah.
And almost like you're going to die if you have more than 2 eggs.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you could have even more than 3, but you'd have to really cut back on the cholesterol for everything else that you're eating.
Really, it's a moderation, like everything else. And when I mean moderation, it's always just a balancing act of how much you're having throughout the day with anything. So if all of your meat protein and your cholesterol or your protein is coming from the eggs, you're not having maybe like the meat and fish and poultry, that's where the balance comes, right? So that might be where you can have a little bit more eggs in your day versus someone who might only have 1 or 2. So it's that balance. It's really what works for you. And then if you have questions or think you're having too much, you can always talk to your physician or a dietitian about, your lab work, what you could do. I always like to talk about things that you can add in your diet to help cholesterol versus things to remove. So things like adding fiber to your day or just exercising. Those are 2 things specifically that can help with your cholesterol levels.
All right. So let's see. Egg yolks are bad for you. Is it true or false?
I say false.
All right. Moving on to the next myth. Carrots give you night vision.
Another really great myth. So I will just straight out say it's false. Although I guess you could say it does help protect your eyes. So carrots do help in the protection of your night vision. So one of the issues with losing your night vision can be from vitamin A deficiency. So that can be the first precursor, the first symptom you might notice if you're deficient in vitamin A. Now that's very rare in the United States, a little bit more common in other developing countries. But however, in the United States, we don't see that as often. Now with vitamin A, you'll see it in compounds like beta carotene and lutein. Those are the two things that kind of make up vitamin A, if you will. Or they're two nutrient-rich parts of vitamin A, even though they're not really nutrients. Antioxidants, if you will, that help to prevent that eye damage. So you might see if you're looking at a supplement, it might not say vitamin A, it might say beta carotene. And beta carotene is it's a provitamin, so it breaks down into vitamin A in your body. So that's why you'll see beta carotene on like vitamin A supplements. Beta carotene specifically is actually what gives the foods that like red-orange colors. So you will see colors that are deep in red or orange or yellows that are also high in vitamin A. And that's because the beta carotene and the lutein actually give it those colors. Vitamin A from animal sources is actually a ready vitamin A, so it doesn't have to break down any further, really. It contains retinol. You'll see that used too as a term for vitamin A is retinol, but any animal sources is also going to have vitamin A. So, like I said, it does really great wonders for preventing or protecting your eyes, but preventing that eye damage, because if you are deficient, it can lead to the night blindness. That's usually the first symptom. Otherwise, it can also lead to kind of like your eyes drying out or not being able to tear or cry. So
carrots help your eyes be healthy. They don't improve night vision, but they help maintain how it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I once saw a patient who actually was juicing carrots. It was very good thought, was done out of the best intentions, of course, trying to get, some vitamin A into the diet. But too much vitamin A or beta carotene specifically can cause your skin to turn like an orange, yellowish color. So it's very noticeable in someone who's had too much carrot juice. Now, too much from beta carotene doesn't necessarily lead to toxic levels. It just depends. High doses over a long period of time that's causing that yellowish orange skin, then it can lead to like bone pain and nausea or an enlarged liver and spleen. So it is important to be mindful of what sources. If you're going to take a supplement, to make sure you speak to your physician or the pharmacist to make sure you're choosing a supplement that's right for you.
Let's pause for just a moment to thank our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by the Parra Memorial Podiatry Clinic and the new provider, Dr. Amanda McGuire.
Raised in small-town Michigan, Dr. McGuire always worked hard to make her goals a reality and hopes to use that same motivation to solve intricate foot, ankle, and lower leg issues. Her patient-centric and personable care philosophy will benefit her patients for years to come. Always looking to make the patient experience better for you, trust Perry Memorial Hospital for your health care. Real solutions, better health.
All right, our next myth. Eating before bed causes weight gain. And usually I've heard of this in context of like never eat past 8 o'clock or never eat past a certain time.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
This is kind of a mixed bag. It's hard for me to say that it's 100% true or 100% false because it's so dependent on the person. So the research behind it doesn't really show any increased weight gain strictly from having a night snack. Some of those research studies were just done on lab animals, unfortunately, and that doesn't always dictate what happens in humans, right? So it really just depends on your preferences. If you are prone to late night snacking and you kind of do a lot of it, kind of grazing throughout that evening, you could be adding a lot of extra calories into your evening, and that might put you over. It just really depends on your day and how much you're balancing, your intake throughout the day. So it's not necessarily eating before bed that can cause weight gain. It's really your overall eating habits throughout the day that can cause or lead to weight gain. So I will have patients that come in and say, I was told not to eat past 7 p.m. Well, you should really be asking yourself, what kind of habits are you doing at that time that might, increase your intake of that snack? Are you eating because you're hungry? Are you eating because you're bored? Are you eating in front of a TV or while on a phone or on a computer? Some of those things can increase your intake of that food because your brain's not paying attention, your stomach's not paying attention to what you're eating, so you'll end up eating more. It's hard to say true or false because it's really dependent per person.
Now, is there anything to the idea that you don't digest as well laying down?
So, no. I actually, just for an example, I actually recommend, especially to patients with diabetes, to have a snack before bed, and that's to actually help balance their glucose levels throughout the evening. And there's not really any research that shows that your body has a decreased inability or isn't able to break down the food after you lay down. Now, those with GERD or acid reflux might have some discomfort if they eat too late. So that could also be a question of the eating late, is if you eat late and then you go to bed and you have stomach pain or that acid reflux pain, it could just be because you're laying down while your food is trying to digest. So.
All right, good to know.
Yeah.
So far, we've got 3 false, not looking good for common conceptions about food right now. Our next one is microwaving zaps nutrients.
Yeah. This is also mainly false. So I would say overall, general rule, false. We know that if you're doing a quick cooking method, the nutrients are more likely to actually stay in that food. The best key aspect of that is to make sure that the food is being heated thoroughly at the same time. So sometimes you might have to add a little bit of water to your food to make sure it's being heated, kind of at the same time. It's that prolonged heating, that repetition or cooking something for a long period of time that can decrease nutrients. But it really just depends, because I wouldn't necessarily say that the other cooking methods aren't healthy cooking methods. I think they all are in their own ways. Every cooking method has a benefit. There's some nutrients that are lost in water, for example. So if you boil them, those are specifically the water-soluble vitamins, so like B vitamins, vitamin C. Those are lost in water. So if you boil a fruit or vegetable, for example, you'll lose a little bit more water-soluble vitamins in that process. If you're steaming, you might lose a little bit more, of the water-soluble ones. So in that aspect, cooking something really quick helps to maintain those nutrients. So really overall, it's false. So a couple other ideas of preserving nutrients when you're microwaving food. When we obviously talked about heating your foods evenly, but also making sure to defrost your frozen foods completely before cooking them. Cut foods into smaller pieces, remove the food from the bone, adding liquid to solid foods, that just helps it to heat thoroughly. Stop part of the way through cooking when you're microwaving and stir and rotate the food. Or cover your food with a microwave-safe lid or microwave-safe plastic wrap to trap the steam. Because if you're trapping the steam, you keep those nutrients within that food. And then, of course, just following the directions for that heating and cooking time, so you're not overcooking the food.
Keep using the microwave. It's safe.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about it. That wraps up today's Nutrition Myth Lightning Round. We actually have a lot more topics that we'd like to get to, so that will be released in a later episode. It doesn't stop here. Access other podcast episodes and resources related to today's episode by visiting www.perrymemorial.org/podcast.